Welcome to Section 4, Part 3 of PRINCE2 Foundation training. In this section, we will go through the following themes: the risk theme, the change theme, and the progress theme. We begin with the risk theme. The purpose of the risk theme is to identify, assess, and control uncertainty, and as a result, improve the ability of the project to succeed. Risk is an important area in project management. Projects have more uncertainties than ongoing repeatable operations. What is a risk? It is an uncertain event or set of events that, should it occur, will have an effect on the achievement of objectives. An example of a risk could be a probability of increase in the price of raw materials in the market, or a probability of lack of motivation of employees in the project. A risk is measured by a combination of the probability of a perceived threat or opportunity occurring and the magnitude of its impact on objectives, which means risks could be negative or positive. Negative risks are known as threats, and positive ones are known as opportunities. An example of an opportunity could be the chance of completing a project earlier than the specified deadline. When risks are analyzed after they are identified, it is important to assess their probability and the impact for every risk. Risk management. This is the systematic application of principles, approaches, and processes for identifying and assessing risks, planning and implementing risk responses, and communicating risk management activities with stakeholders. Many organizations apply standard risk management practices such as Axelos Management of Risk or ISO 31000. And such risk management should include identification of risks, their assessment, planning the responses for every risk and the overall risks, and then implementing the responses in a timely manner, and continuously communicating status of risks to concerned stakeholders. The project will have to adopt the risk management system of the organization or of the program in case part of a program. Most of the times, project managers would have to comply with the risk management guidelines and procedures of the organization. They will not be required to invent new procedures for risk management. However, every project will have its own unique risks, and they would have to be identified and analyzed, and responses need to be planned for them and implemented. Risk attitude is a common term. It is the amount of risk the organization is willing to bear. Some organizations are willing to bear a higher risk in anticipation of a quick reward, but some organizations do not seek risks. The concept of risk budget. It is an amount of money to fund specific management responses to the project's threats and opportunities. When a project has threats and opportunities, actions need to be taken to reduce the threats or eliminate the threats and to exploit or enhance those opportunities. And for these actions, certain effort and funding is necessary. That funding is called the risk budget, which means the risk budget does not include the effort to identify and analyze the risks or to plan the responses, but only the effort to fund the actions to be taken. For example, to cover the cost of any contingent plans when a risk occurs. The meaning of the word contingent is an action to be taken based on a certain symptom, a warning sign, or a condition. Generally, most of the risks would have contingency plans when actions would be triggered in advance based on certain conditions. For example, increase of raw materials of price of raw materials in the market. No action may be taken unless the price goes beyond a certain threshold limit. The risk budget should also factor certain unknown risks. While some of the risks would be identified and documented in the risk register or the risk log, there may be some risks which are totally unknown. A risk itself is unknown, and there could be unknown risks as well. For example, a sudden disaster. And for such purposes also, certain additional budget should be reserved in the risk budget. The risk register and risk management approach are created during the initiating a project process. The initiating a project process is where the detailed planning for a project is done. This process occurs in the initiation stage. At the end of the initiation stage, the stage boundary process is triggered, known as the managing a stage boundary. The risk management approach is the overall risk plan for a project. This approach should be reviewed and may have to be updated at the end of each management stage. The risk management approach will define how and when the risk register is reviewed and updated. PRINCE2 does not prescribe any specific risk management approach, but the approach should meet minimum requirements of the theme. We will see afterwards what are the minimum requirements of the risk theme and specifically what minimally should be included in the risk management approach. We now look at the risk management procedure. This is recommended by PRINCE2. This is based on the management of risk or the MOR guidance for practitioners from Axelos Limited. MOR is a separate guidance and you could get certified in MOR as well. They have the MOR Foundation certificate and the practitioner certificate. There are 5 steps in the risk management procedure. It begins with identify, then assess, plan the responses, that is, implement the response plans in a timely manner, and then communicate the risk status throughout the project. In short, IAPIC. You would have to remember this sequence for the exam. Note that communicate doesn't happen at the end, but throughout. So as soon as risks are identified, it may be required to communicate the list of identified risks or the summary of the identified risks. And this is shown clearly in this picture: identify, assess, plan, implement, and communicate throughout. And this is a repeating cycle, which means this is not done just once, but throughout the project.